On this vote, the yeas are 44, the nays are 48. The 60 vote threshold having not been achieved, the bill is not passed.
Bueno amigos, lo que acabamos de ver fue el Senado de los Estados Unidos incapaz de aprobar una resolución para financiar al gobierno. Se necesitaban 60 votos, como vieron, no llegaron ni de cerca. ¿Cuál es la razón de todo esto? Donald Trump ordenó a los republicanos que no tuvieran absolutamente ninguna conversación con los demócratas, y mucho menos que negociaran de buena fe. Entonces, la pregunta es, ¿qué es lo que hace MAGA Mike Johnson en medio de todo esto? Nos estamos acercando oficialmente a un cierre de gobierno el próximo 1 de octubre. ¿Qué fue lo que decidió Mike Johnson? Cancelar 2 días de trabajo que son fechas claves. Hablamos del 29 y del 30 de septiembre, justo antes del cierre de gobierno, del shutdown. Una locura. Y como esta semana coincide con una festividad judía en la Cámara de Representantes, tampoco habrá mucha actividad. Así que estos 2 días eran vitales. Pero Johnson les dijo a sus colegas republicanos, no se presenten a trabajar. ¿Por qué? Porque Donald Trump y los MAGA quieren el cierre de gobierno. Por eso es que Mike Johnson manda a los suyos literalmente a esconderse. Igual como sucedió en el verano pasado, cuando dejaron de trabajar solo para ocultarse de los archivos de Epstein. Y ahora están repitiendo la misma jugada. Pero claro, con un Congreso donde demócratas como Robert García, como Ro Khanna, como Eric Swalwell, como Jasmine Crockett, se acercan cada vez más a los famosos documentos que tanto teme Trump. Bueno, centrémonos en el tema principal. Donald Trump quiere un shutdown, un cierre de gobierno. ¿Pero para qué lo quiere? Lo quiere para frenar los avances y de paso, ¿no?, culpar a los demócratas de la crisis económica que él mismo está provocando. Ya lo tienen todo planeado. Los demócratas forzaron el cierre. Eso, señores, será el próximo titular que verán en todos los medios trumpistas. Y bueno, van a decir falso. Trump ordenó no negociar absolutamente nada con los demócratas. Así de simple, señores. Y claro, como siempre, yo les traigo las pruebas. Primero veamos el orden que dio Trump a los republicanos. La orden que les dio. Aquí está Trump diciendo con sus propias palabras que no negocien con los demócratas. Escuchen.
How does President Trump deal with the government?
Well, we have to get Republican votes. That's all. If we do, we have the majority, so we have to get.
But don't you have to get 60? Don't you?
No, we're going to do a probably continuing resolution, or we're going to do something. So we're going to do something that. Here's the problem: the Democrats they're sick. There's something wrong with them. Schumer is, at the end of the rope. He's going to be defeated in the next election. If you gave them every dream right now, every dream that they want to give away money to this and that, destroy the country. If you gave them every dream, they would not vote for it. That's how bad. I told them, don't even bother dealing with them. We will get it through because the Republicans are sticking together for the first time in a long time. Look, we got I call it the great big beautiful.
Okay. Ahora, para que no digan que nos inventamos nada, escuchen al propio MAGA Mike Johnson diciendo que no piensa incluir los créditos fiscales del Obamacare en la resolución. O sea, en otras palabras, deja que caduquen para el mes de diciembre. Justamente, ¿no?, cuando millones de familias van a perder cobertura. Eso, señores, es condenar a la gente a la bancarrota. Hasta la muerte para algunos. Aquí tienen a Johnson diciendo que lo deja para después.
That's what's happening here. What they're trying to argue for, not to get too deep in the weeds, is they're trying to insist that the Obamacare premium subsidies be continued. That's a December policy debate and decision, not a September funding matter. So they're trying to insert unrelated matters into the middle of a clean government extension.
Y por si fuera poco, lo hace con una arrogancia impresionante, ¿no? Ahora escuchen este otro momento donde intenta culpar del cierre del gobierno a los demócratas, cuando ustedes mismos acaban de escuchar que Trump fue quien dio la orden de no negociar.
House Republicans continue to work through regular order to fund the government for FY26, for the next fiscal year. We're working closely with the White House and the Senate to ensure we meet our deadlines, and Chairman Cole, Tom Cole of the Appropriators, continues to diligently work towards getting all 12 bills out of committee. And they're almost done with that. And as we get closer to the funding deadline, though, we recognize the shutdown chatter from the left is growing louder. Some of these people seem to enjoy this. It seems Democrats may take the path of maximum resistance and try to shut the government down. It's not surprising because they're struggling, because they don't really have a message or a leader, or their party registration is falling, their approval ratings are in the low 20s, and they're about to elect a Marxist to be the mayor of New York City. They are desperately searching for a solution, and some in the party apparently think a government shutdown would be some sort of political advantage to them. It'd be what we all know is dangerous and harmful to millions of Americans, and that is not the answer. So I'm going to say this again, and I'm saying it in good faith. I've shared this with the Democrat leader in the House and other colleagues. If Democrats are willing to work with us, we have our sleeves rolled up and we want to do this in good faith. We just have to think responsibly how to spend less money than we did last year. And if they're willing to do that, and it's incumbent upon all of us to do it with the high national debt, we're open to that. But the ultimate question of whether there's going to be a government shutdown at the end of the month is going to be up to congressional Democrats, and that's just the way.
Es más, incluso algunos republicanos ya reconocen que la situación en sus distritos son insostenibles. Agricultores que sufren, precios que suben, la gente no puede pagar sus cuentas. Y mientras tanto, los multimillonarios, felices con Trump, siguen enriqueciéndose, vendiendo el futuro del país. Escucha, por ejemplo, lo que dice el republicano Don Bacon, el cual, por cierto, ya ni siquiera busca reelegirse, sobre lo que pasó en Nebraska.
Do you think he's overreaching on tariffs?
I think he is by far. Article 1 of the Constitution clearly gives us to Congress. Granted, we passed 3 laws in the last century, nothing recently, but the last century that gives the president emergency powers. But most people will tell you this is not emergency powers, what he's doing.
And is it hurting your constituents?
Yes, right. We heard just yesterday, we have a company that makes combines. They're moving all of their manufacturing that makes combines for Canada to Europe. Because of the tariffs from going to U.S. to Canada are too high, they can't compete. So they're going to move all the manufacturing for Canadian combines to Europe. That's hundreds of jobs right there. Iowa and Nebraska are really struggling right now with our farm economy. We're not growing markets for corn and soybeans. The president's making trade deals, but not a single country that I can see has bought more corn or soybeans. And that's what we really need right now.
Y aquí lo tienen otra vez hablando del desastre de los aranceles de Trump.
I should speak up and hopefully try to bring a point that tariffs aren't working, at least the coffee. I mean, I went and bought coffee when I came back from my apartment, and it was up $4 the bag that I buy, right? People, that's not success right there. So I feel like if we have an opportunity to speak up, other people think they'd rather try to give them more time. But I think a lot of people share my view on tariffs. They share my view on...
A lot of people are scared of it.
Ahora bien, pasemos a los demócratas que explican lo que realmente pasó. Aquí veremos primero al senador Chris Van Hollen, dejando en claro, ¿no?, cómo los republicanos bloquearon un plan de sentido común, solo para poder mantener al gobierno abierto y proteger la salud de millones de estadounidenses.
Republicans just voted to push the country toward a government shutdown. Let me explain. Just a little while ago, I cast 2 votes in the United States Senate. One was against the one-way, completely partisan Republican budget. The other was a proposal that we have made to Republicans in the Senate. I voted for that proposal to keep the government open. Here's the problem. Senate Republicans say they want a bipartisan budget agreement, but they're not calling the shots. Donald Trump is calling all the shots because Republicans in the House and the Senate, at the end of the day, they have contracted out their votes and their responsibilities to Donald Trump. I am not going to write a blank check to a lawless president. We need guardrails, we need safeguards, because right now, the president is refusing to spend funds that we've invested in Americans' health care. at NIH and other places. And he's refusing to spend monies for public safety through FEMA. So that's why the Democratic proposal that I voted for includes those guardrails, but it also includes something else. It addresses some of the big critical healthcare issues we're facing in this country. Because Republicans have left a ticking time bomb on important healthcare for America. Specifically, at the end of this year, the premium tax credits for people on the Affordable Care Act will go away. That will immediately mean millions of Americans will lose access to health insurance. But it actually will impact everybody in a harmful way because insurance rates and premiums are going to go up across the board. So we want to turn off this ticking time bomb so it doesn't blow up access to health care for America. That's the proposal we put forward. But Donald Trump, he's taken the position that he's king and it's his way or nothing. And sadly, Republicans are going along. They are clearly heading toward a government shutdown for this country. And there's a way to avoid it through bipartisanship, but that requires people to come together for the good of the country.
Y aquí tenemos a la senadora Patty Murray explicando también cómo es que fue la jugada.
President Trump made his marching orders plain as day, saying, quote, "Don't even bother dealing with them. Don't even bother." That's what he said. And in other words, Trump does not want a deal. He doesn't want legislation. He doesn't want negotiation. He doesn't care if a shutdown hurts people. And Republican leadership is once again following his orders. Well, I've got some news for Republicans. If you follow Trump's orders and don't even bother dealing with Democrats and you suddenly find you don't have the votes you need to fund the government, that is a Republican shutdown.
Finalmente, escuchen al senador Chris Murphy, el cual contó en un podcast con el canal de Midas Touch cómo los republicanos ni siquiera intentaron negociar con los demócratas.
Well, I mean, there's no negotiation happening because Donald Trump has told Republicans, don't talk to Democrats. So, right now we are less than 2 weeks away from the government running out of money and Republicans are refusing to speak to Democrats. It looks as if, they're gunning for a shutdown. And, what are we asking to talk about in these negotiations? We are not asking for the moon, right? We're not asking for some big new healthcare program. We're simply saying, don't raise premiums by 10, 20% on everybody who has an Affordable Care Act plan. Let's just not make the situation worse. What are we saying about, the budget writ large? We're saying, listen, we would just like Donald Trump to behave legally, right? If we write a budget, we want Donald Trump to actually implement the budget and not view himself as a king who can spend the money he wants when it rewards his political friends, and he can not spend the money as a means to try to punish his political enemies, right? Spend the money in the red states, not spend the money in the blue states. So we're literally just saying, don't raise people's premiums by 75%. Don't behave illegally, and you might be able to get our votes, but they won't even talk to us because I think they like the chaos. They like the idea of a shutdown, and that's where they're driving us, which would be a catastrophe for the country if we end up in a shutdown simply because Republicans refuse to even talk to Democrats.
Pero amigos, nada de eso detiene la manipulación de los MAGA. Johnson miente en la Cámara. Luego vemos a Jim Thune, miente en el Senado. Lo mismo con todos, culpando a los demócratas, cuando en realidad ellos mismos han dinamitado las negociaciones. El problema, amigos, es que mientras en otros países la salud se considera como un derecho, ¿no? En Estados Unidos los republicanos lo están utilizando como una ficha política. La gente no pide un club privado en la Casa Blanca. La gente no viaja en un jet privado como Kash Patel a ver peleas de UFC. La gente solo está pidiendo poder pagar sus medicinas, su renta, sus alimentos. Y lo peor es que Trump ahora quiere meter otra vez a Estados Unidos en el tema de Afganistán, hablando de la base de Bagram, como si fuera un logro suyo, ¿no? Cuando en realidad lo construyeron los soviéticos. O sea, de verdad, estamos hablando nuevamente de volver a enviar tropas a guerras interminables. Mientras en Estados Unidos la gente no puede pagar un hospital. Y eso no, que ni hablar de las atrocidades que hemos visto en Gaza, que Trump parece ignorarlo por completo. Miren esto.
Well, Republicans want to keep the government open, and the Democrats, based on what I believe is the Schumer strategy, is a shutdown strategy. It is their goal to shut down the government. The left wing of their party is demanding it, and Chuck Schumer is snakebit. He's afraid to do anything that they won't want him to do.
Ahí lo tienen, amigos. Donald Trump y sus cómplices están jugando con la vida, con la salud del pueblo. ¿Y solo para qué? Para salvar su propio pellejo político. Ahora bien, amigos, quiero que hablemos de algo que está generando un verdadero terremoto político dentro de las otras instituciones bases en Estados Unidos, que en este caso hablamos del Departamento de Justicia. Y es que empleados y fiscales dicen estar absolutamente traumatizados porque Donald Trump está insistiendo en que el fiscal general, o bueno, su fiscal general Pam Bondi, procese a quienes él considera sus adversarios políticos. Así es, señores. Donald Trump quiere terminar de convertir el Departamento de Justicia en su herramienta de venganza. No hace mucho vimos cómo un fiscal tuvo que renunciar porque Trump le estaba obligando a que construya pruebas falsas contra la fiscal Letitia James. Pues bueno, Trump no se quedó tranquilo. Ahora quiere que Pam Bondi vaya en contra de todos sus enemigos. Escuchemos esta noticia.
Let's bring in MSNBC's Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian, MSNBC political contributor and Atlantic staff writer Mark Leibovich, and MSNBC legal analyst and former Manhattan Assistant DA Catherine Christian. Ken, are you hearing any pushback or concerns from inside the DOJ?
Well, yes, of course, Anna, and it's consistent with what I've been hearing from sources inside the building almost since the beginning of the Trump administration, because, again, I keep saying this, we've never been here before. Even in the first Trump administration, the Justice Department ran like a normal Justice Department, where it respected the rule of law, it respected the decisions of career prosecutors. The White House did not tell it, for the most part, what to investigate or what not to investigate. That is all out the window now. And so the people that have done business the same way for 30 years, some of them have been there, although many of those people are leaving, are traumatized by this. Not just concerned, they're absolutely traumatized by what's been happening at the Justice Department, not only on criminal cases, but on all sorts of cases, antitrust cases, corporate monitor cases, the lack of enforcing the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. But in this particular case, the idea that the White House would order the Justice Department to prosecute certain individuals goes against 50 years of the post-Watergate tradition of the Justice Department being independent of politics, and it's very troubling to people who work there.
Yeah, Catherine, your reaction to these very public calls out in the open, the president calling on his attorney general to prosecute his perceived political enemies?
Well, the reason why these prosecutors are traumatized, not because it's a tradition, it is so highly unethical for a prosecutor to choose people to prosecute for no reason other than, my boss hates them. You choose crimes. You choose cases that you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt and let the chips fall where they may, as long as the facts and the evidence show it. But to just go after people just because they are perceived to be an enemy of the person who appointed you is just not what you do as an ethical prosecutor.
Do you have confidence that these prosecutors will hold the line?
Well, we have resignations, and the ones who don't hold the line will either be fired or not. But it's your duty as a prosecutor, particularly if you're senior. It's one thing to say I was young, I didn't know what I was doing. But to say my boss made me do it does not play if you're someone as senior as the high-ranking people who are in DOJ.
Mark, the DOJ is supposed to be independent. The judicial branch is supposed to serve as a check and balance on the executive branch. We are seeing that in some of the lower courts. But take a look at this. The White House has won 18 times with cases that made it to the Supreme Court since January. Only 2 losses. The Trump administration is on a 15-case winning streak, with their last shadow docket loss being back in May, Could that track record, do you think, be why the president is feeling so emboldened and is feeling he can make these statements publicly?
Probably, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of mechanisms within basically the Trump-friendly world, whether it's the Republican Party, whether it's his own administration, the Justice Department, whether it's, as he perceives it, the Supreme Court, that have given him a lot of confidence to be able to basically do what he wants. I mean, I think the thing that happens here is, look, the DOJ sounds, by all intents and purposes, like a total mess. I mean, Trump can say what he is saying, and it can sound, highly irregular, obviously, deeply unethical. I mean, you choose your words, but ultimately, you do need prosecutors who will make these cases. Many of them have left. Many of them have been fired. Many of them are quitting. Many of them want nothing to do with this. And if you happen to find prosecutors who are willing to do the bidding here, ultimately the system of justice in this country relies on facts, relies on bringing a case, relies on going in a courtroom and not committing perjury. And the actual details of bringing a case and getting a prosecution are extremely complicated, rightly. And it's not just a president of the United States, strange as it is, spouting off the way he is. So, look, I mean, there is a big disconnect between the president's words and what actually happens during prosecutions. And I think that hopefully will be the center that holds here.
Federal prosecutor Eric Siebert resigned Friday under pressure. And Catherine, you brought this up. This was the man who had the Letitia James case in his court. And our understanding is he said there wasn't a crime to pursue there after looking at the evidence. Now, he resigned. The president says no, he was fired. With so much happening, Catherine, help us understand how dangerous this is for our democracy.
It's very dangerous because if you do have prosecutors who will just ignore the facts and just present a case to the grand jury that they know they cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt or even have probable cause, you're hoping that the grand jury will see through that and not bring an indictment. But if they don't see through that and do bring an indictment, then you've basically messed up someone's life. Eventually, yes, the court will see that and dismiss the indictment. But meantime, you have had your life destroyed. You've hired an attorney. And it's very frightening. It's like a star chamber. You just people being chosen not because they have actually committed a crime or we have been able to prove they committed a crime. It's just because they're perceived to have been the enemy or against whoever the person is. And in this case, the president appointed you as the prosecutor.
Ken, it's not just calling for investigations or prosecutions of certain people. You have exclusive reporting along with our colleague Carol Lenig that shows the current DOJ and the FBI also stopped an investigation into a member of the Trump administration. Tell us all the details.
That's right. On a border czar, Tom Homan, although he wasn't border czar at the time, we're talking about September of last year, was recorded by the FBI accepting $50,000 in cash, according to multiple people familiar with the matter, in exchange for a promise to help these were undercover FBI agents posing as business executives to help these people get contracts in a future Trump administration. He was certain that he was going to have a high position in the administration. And so this was part of a significant FBI anti-corruption investigation. Some prosecutors thought he could have been charged at the time for conspiracy to commit bribery. Others said, no, let's wait and see what he does when he takes office. This case was referred to the public integrity section of the Justice Department when he became the border czar. The Trump administration was briefed on it at some point. And then the FBI was not allowed to take further investigative steps. And so they didn't get to track and see whether he fulfilled his promise. And at some point, the investigation was closed, rather recently, actually formally closed after it withered for some time. Now, the White House is saying that there was no illegality here. They're implying that this was a politically motivated probe. And the Justice Department is saying that prosecutors looked at this and found no laws broken. Our sources are saying something entirely different. There's a lot of unanswered questions here. One of the biggest questions I'm getting about this story, Anna, is did Tom Homan keep the money? I mean, this was $50,000 from the taxpayers. What happened to it? We don't know the answer. I've asked the White House today that question. I will let you know as soon as I hear an answer to that.
And do we know whether he did try to make good on the promises that he allegedly made these people in accepting that money?
That's not clear because this was, as we understand it, this is an FBI undercover operation and a fake company. So it's not clear that they could have gotten contracts. Obviously, they would have, had they gone through their investigation, they might have taken a number of steps, monitored his communications, watched his every move to see exactly what was happening. You know, he was working as a lobbyist, essentially an influence peddler, getting paid, and that's legal, you know, to try to influence government policy as it was. What's alleged here, though, is something much different. Cash surreptitiously given to him by undercover FBI agents.
Mark, Congressman Adam Schiff reacted to Ken's reporting, posting, quote, Pam Bondi knew, Kash Patel knew, Emil Bobby knew, and they made the investigation go away. Do you see Democrats taking this further? And with the GOP in control of Congress, will those efforts even go anywhere?
Well, probably not as far as, impeachment or investigations, as long as Republicans control the House. But I do think that, Adam Schiff is, the biggest weapon Democrats have here is just the sunlight of this. And obviously, Ken and other reporters have brought this to light. And it certainly stinks. And I think, you can talk about the legalities of this and why they didn't bring a case and so forth. It certainly looks like they were taking care of their own, but it also, anything that involves a bag of cash is a bad look, full stop, right? I think it's interesting that it's a Kava bag in this case, because it sort of triggered all kinds of discussion about Kava orders and so forth. But no, bags of cash are bad. And, it's certainly not a good look for the administration. And as Chuck Schumer said before, they obviously feel they have other material that's more valuable, whether it's healthcare, whether it's prices, whether it's cost and so forth. But it certainly doesn't look good.
Catherine, what's your reaction to Ken's?
Bueno, señores, el Departamento de Justicia al borde del colapso, ¿no? Y esto no es una exageración, porque estamos viendo el mejor ejemplo de el autoritarismo puro y duro, amigos. El presidente exigiendo al sistema judicial que se utilice como su arma personal. Y ojo que he visto a varios defensores del trumpismo diciendo que todos los presidentes tienen poder de influencia sobre el Departamento de Justicia, y eso es mentira, señores. Una cosa es la coordinación política, otra muy distinta es ordenar persecuciones selectivas, y peor aún sin tener pruebas, solo porque alguien no te cae bien o porque se atrevió a criticarte. Eso es exactamente lo que distingue un gobierno democrático a un régimen represivo. Además, solo pensemos en el efecto que todo esto tendrá en la gente que trabaja ahí. Estamos hablando de abogados, fiscales, investigadores, que han seguido reglas éticas durante décadas y ahora se están enfrentando a la amenaza de ser despedidos o humillados si no cumplen órdenes de venganza. ¿Cuál será el resultado de aquí a poco, amigos? Seguramente veremos renuncias masivas, miedo, un sistema que se quiebra desde adentro. Lo más grave, ¿no? Que si un fiscal, por presión política, digamos que se inventa un caso en contra de uno de los enemigos de Trump que es inocente o que sean inocentes, aunque después un juez lo tumbe, esa persona ya tiene su vida destruida. Van a gastar miles y miles de dólares en abogados. Su reputación va a quedar manchada. Y todo porque Trump decidió que era un enemigo. ¿Se dan cuenta de lo peligroso que esto puede llegar a ser? Lo que estamos viendo es el plan del trumpismo para gobernar no con justicia, para gobernar con miedo. Si es que se llega a imponer esta lógica de procesar a mis enemigos, nadie va a estar a salvo. Ni políticos, ni periodistas, ni ciudadanos comunes. Imaginen ustedes protestando en las calles y que vayan presos por eso. A eso me estoy refiriendo. Pero bueno, ¿qué opinan ustedes, amigos? ¿Creen que el sistema judicial va a resistir esta presión política? ¿O que Donald Trump logrará quebrarlo desde adentro? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerden, como siempre, déjame tu like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.